Okay, so we were at the door. We're at door number, let me get out of the. So I would encourage you, this is, the very bottom is my book, which is somewhere here. Somewhere here. I know Tom has it, but I would encourage all of you to have this book. It'll answer a lot of the questions, a lot more depths that we can't do in our short time this morning. But you need to understand what's going on in the publishing. I identify the 7 different models: the pay to publish, the print on demand. Print on demand is not a way to publish. It's a printing method. Understand that. It's just printing, one at a time. And Create Space at Amazon is a printing method. Although they will publish it, it's going to have their imprint. Tattered cover is not going to carry it. Barnes & Noble, you need to understand that. The other thing is, if you said successful to you is having your books in a bookstore, your responsibility is to get people to go to the bookstores. They have to go to the bookstores. If they're not going to go to the bookstores are going to return them all. And I had a come to book meeting with a client that we published. And he has a great book. He put the money into developing it, to laying it out. It's edited. The cover looks great. I took it to my national distributor, and that it was pitched at Barnes & Noble was carrying it. It was in the tattered cover. He never told people to go to buy books at the bookstore. Guess what happens? They start getting returned. It's like Ken's in real estate. A shelf is real estate in a bookstore. If it doesn't turn over, the only thing they can have, if it doesn't turn over, meaning books are sold, they don't want you in their house. And they will send it back. So 90% of all hardback books were returned from bookstores last year.
Question. Somebody told me that they don't literally buy all the books, that they just, you put them in on consignment in the bookstore?
Ah, question is, so consignment, is that what a bookstore does? Absolutely. I'm always amazed how they lose money. They don't pay for any product. Zero. It's all on consignment. What they do is have huge overhead from these buildings and things. But it's all consignment. So they're buying it. You have a distributor, which would be like Baker & Taylor, which any of you could, if you, and who will Baker & Taylor take you? Yes, if you have a marketing plan. In that marketing plan is how I'm going to drive people to bookstores to buy it. Does that make sense? Because they don't want to work with you unless you're going to do your job. Now, in the old days, when I first started in publishing in the early 80s, the publisher did that. They didn't expect you to do social media because it didn't exist then. They didn't expect you to really hire your own publicist, although I did do that. Today it's different. So what are you going to do to drive it? Now, I gave you all information on authoru.org. I would absolutely encourage you to get involved with it. When you're a member of that, we give you, you have open national distributor channel that automatically will have it available to Barnes & Noble. Pardon?
What is it, .org?
Authoru.org. You've got a card. I put cards on everybody's table. Yeah, everyone's got that. So you're welcome. So Bob, going back to your question, is that if you don't move them, it's going to come back to, yes, they don't pay for it, and it could come back damaged, and you eat it. And with the demise of Borders, what happened is Borders, creditors, were coming back and returning books and demanding credit that they never paid for. And it was very interesting. So.
I've heard everybody was buying Borders books, reading them, and just bringing them back. That you know, they would take the books back. Is that true?
Say it again?
That people would buy books, read them, and bring them back because they had no questions asked return policy.
Well, they could have. They could have. How many of you have ever taken a book back? Anyone here? I have, actually. I was so angry at John Grissom's book. I thought it was so cheesy. I took it back. I read it and took it back, and I put a seething review on Amazon. Because I don't think he wrote it. I don't think he wrote it. All right, so small press or an independent. All right, that means that you want to do what the big boys do. You're going to do it just as but them. So I have Mile High Press. So we did it primarily for my own books, but we've published other people's books. And I had to have a couple of come-to-book meetings with them where I terminated our publishing relationship because I got the books in the bookstore, but if you're not going to do it, because it costs me money. As a publisher, it costs me, I have to pay warehouse cost. Every time a book goes out, we get charged the shipping. I pay for the shipping, and when it comes back, I get charged 75 cents for restocking. So if you're not pushing books, we're losing money, you know, and success to me is not losing money. So small press, you can do, the great news is, we have right here in Colorado an amazing publishing community. And we have wonderful artists. For example, Rebecca Finkel is up here in Fort Collins. And how many of you have, oh God, now I've gone blank on his name. The fellow who does the amazing coffee table books, John Fielder. John Fielder. And she does all his book designs. That's internet. She's right here and available. She's one of our members that does that kind of thing. And we've got Nick Zillinger, who's fabulous, very creative, very fast. You know, when I can hook into people that I see different illustrations, like Sue, I want to see what her works looks like. I love working with illustrators that people say, I need an illustrated book. That I said, here's a group of people that would be work for. You don't have to pay New York rates. We have the people to work with right here in our area. Okay, so if you go to authoru.org, look under associate members, you'll see who these players are. All right, so why do authors fail? 5 things. 1, they don't get the book edited. And well, my mother edited. No, your mother loves you. Well, my sister edited. Well, she kind of loves you too. Unless these people do it as professional jobs, that's another area. And understand this, that, well, you know, my sister works at the university. That doesn't mean anything. And the other thing is that would scare me, because if you're writing a book for a non-academic audience, it's a different language. For science, you have to have an editor who will understand the technology. Because in science work, aren't there a lot of words that are odd? You know, we just did a huge book where I book shepherded called The Adrenal Fatigue Syndrome. I had book fatigue syndrome when I was done. But I can tell you in the vision that we created for the book, it's a massive book. It's like a phone book. We call it the mothership. It's a massive book. We created 18 books out of it. Because I said to Dr. Lamb, now Dr. Lamb, you may, if you don't have adrenal fatigue syndrome, you wouldn't know who he is. But he has 1 million followers. 1 million followers. He has an extraordinarily active email list. You know, he's in Hong Kong, I'm here. We put it together. And I just said, I want you to think this way. Now, he was going for his cover, the standard medical kind of looking cover, boring. And I talked him in to do this incredibly bright orange spiral. You know, the graphics guy and I got together. It has this black hole going into it because I said, I want you to look at it as a thumbprint. I'm looking at covers, what they look like electronically on your phone, you know, on an e-reader. And out of that, I said, you know, Michael, this book is so massive, why don't we split it up? Those of you who have tech books, science books, start thinking of splitting it up. James Patterson created this format, the 2-page chapter. You know, his books, his fiction books. For your fiction, think mini. Don't think big. Get them chop, 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 chop bites. Forbes magazine, I had a good friend who was one of their columnists. They taught them to write for bathroom reading. What you can read an article at one sitting, that was their game plan all the time. So think of your reader that way, otherwise it gets too long as you go along. So I said, Michael, if we take this book, because he said to me, I wanted him to split the book in half in the first place, and he said, listen, when they're so sick, what else can they do but stay in bed? Okay, I get that. But not everyone, there's different stagings of this. So what if we do this in segments? So then we created the mini books, and then we have the micro books. So the mini books are, you know, maybe 3 and 4 chapters we put together. I wrote a new back cover for them, a new introduction that came in, and they kept the mothership has this bright mango tangerine was the color of the year this year, by the way. So mango tangerine, and then we had different shades of green, turquoise, blue, fuchsia, purple. All these different books now have the exact graphic, but a different color. So what has he done? What would be the word that we're doing? Branding, thank you. So the branding think branding. And your name, by the way, is a brand. Think branding in that. For my fiction, my new fiction writer here, Tony, you've got a great name, Tony Simpson. That's the brand. Do you own TonySimpson.com?
I haven't checked.
Every one of you should have your name. .com. Don't diddle around with anything else. If your name is taken, and the odds are it's probably as, Philip Smith is a real easy name. Do you have it?
Nope.
Okay, so now you look at author Philip Smith. Okay? I know. Roger, you might have a better chance.
I haven't.
You have it, okay. And when my grandkids were born, I bought their URLs. Okay, so that's the kind of thing. So author Tony Simpson. So you start doing it, and if you want to look at a starting point, look at Jim Lynch's book, because Jim Lynch is a runner. He has just run, he's a local person, he splits the time between Hawaii and here. He's run 88 marathons. And this year is going to be his last year of marathon running, but his book is one step in front of the other, I think. And it's his memoir. We're almost done with it, but he couldn't get Jim Lynch, so it's author Jim Lynch, and he now has 10,000 followers just on Twitter. And huge. So that's part of the branding. So think from the get-go. Is there a book in you? I want you to get your brand started going it. So for Michael Lamb, what we did is then the spiral thing, he had these 6 mini books on different things that we combined together. We gave a new title so people could call them. And one's just for people who travel, diet and travel with adrenal fatigue syndrome. And then we have the mini, the micro series, which is 1 chapter at a time. All right, now, let me just talk about pricing on Amazon. You need to understand, because we did talk about CreateSpace. If you do an ebook on Amazon, if your book is priced between $2.99 and $9.99 and you have a print book, that's why I want you to do, if you do CreateSpace, you've got the print version and then you go to ebook, because then they will pay you more money, Tony. Okay, so if you don't have a book, a print book that backs it up, they only pay 35%. If you have a print book, you can get 70%. Big difference. It's called double the money. And you have, and they pay that 70%, their window is $2.99 floor, $9.99. If it's over, your ebook's over $9.99, they drop it back to 35%. It's the amazing business model. It is an amazing business model. So $2.99. So I would not, now, teas, 99 cents. Tony, teas at 99 cents. Free chapters. You can do your launch teas days. You could do a 99-cent day. But when you get into it, I want you to move it into $2.99. Okay, and Amazon has all that information on their website. They want, well, you have to dig and find what I just told you. But how to do those special things, okay? Yes? $2.99 to $9.99 is 70% if you have a print book. Yeah.
Is there any kind of rule of thumb about where you should price your book in that range?
Oh, good question. So is there a rule of thumb where we should price that book? And I would go in and look at other comparable books. Okay. Don't get greedy. But if you've got a nonfiction book, like when Ken comes out with his book, I'm going to tell him you go closer to the top. The type of clientele he's going with, $9.99 is nothing, correct? It's nothing.
What about historical fiction?
Say it again? Historical fiction is the same thing. I want you to go to Mara Pearl. She's in the middle of doing a massive website makeover. But she's been extraordinarily successful, and she has the Milford Haven series. She writes women fiction. She has a lot of historical in it, and she is using a small town in Central Coast, California, called Cambria as her fictional, I mean, it's her town that Milford Haven is based on. It's got love, it's got sex, it's got thrill, it's got, you know, all that kind of stuff. And Mara sold 15,000 books in one day at 99 cents. That's $15,000. Gets my attention. You know, and also for those of you who are doing fiction, do prequels, even nonfiction. Think about doing a prequel of something. Set the set up. of doing that. Tease, 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 tease.
What does that mean?
A prequel could be, for example, in Mara's book, her first book, which was based on a radio show. This all came from a radio show she did on the BBC. So she has, the book is What the Heart Knows. So she did a prequel, brought the characters, and introduced all the characters of what they were kind of doing. And it could be, you know, it's just a little common thread that links what your story is about for fiction, and for nonfiction, it could be a setup. You could talk about, you know, some of the balloons and the up and down or disasters, and can people still make it in real estate? The answer is yes, they can, but they do it smartly, right? So, John.
How long has Mara been
Oh, good question. Mara has been, this is not something Mara started last month. This is part of her platform. She's been working on this for several years. You know, and she came out with a self-published, 1 at a time, 50 at a time, 100 at a time, and then she went into a partnership and a small deal with, and created a new imprint called Bill Keep. With a New York group, and she really runs it, and it's for women's fiction. So it's been, but it's massive, and she's putting money into it. It's not 100 here. It's many thousands at this point. All right, so editing. We don't get editing. Number 2, the reason why we fail. Come on. Okay. Is there are publishing predators out there, and you have to be careful. Self-publishing is the hottest thing going on today. Everyone is looking for your dollar and your checkbook and basically your credit card. They don't care about your checkbook, they want your credit card. So, remember what I said, you go into Google with anybody, iUniverse, if you put in complaints, problems, scams, you will have pages of stuff. Just don't do it. Don't do it. There's other ways to go down the path before. So be careful. Do we have publishing predators that are actually burst and grow and practice here in Colorado? Yes, we do. So you always, when you start asking for references, you always ask the question, would you be willing to work with this person again? You know, I had a call from someone just the other day who had said, you know, what do you think about working with this group? And I just said, absolutely not. And he says, well, it didn't feel right when they said they wanted 50% of all my revenues. And I said, absolutely. You want 100%. That business 101. Business 101. All right. You don't treat publishing as a business. This is, you don't, it won't click. I'm sorry. It won't click. Oh, it clicked. Okay. So you won't treat publishing as a business, and it is a business. The reason why I built the platforms I did and I was successful is I always viewed that this was a business. Now, did I make mistakes along the way? Yeah. I made a lot of them. But don't we all? That's business. Right, Roger? And Roger has to undo some of those mistakes. But we make mistakes along the way, but it has to be treated as business. So you have a profit and a loss. Okay, and you need to understand, I think, what a lot of people knew in this path go into shell shock, where someone says, "Well, you know, you've got a 300-page manuscript. There needs a lot of rewriting involved in it. You know, the editing is going to be a minimum of 2,000," and they go into shell shock because what you know when you've written the book, you didn't put a value on your time because you were doing it in these off hours. But the reality is, if you paid someone to write your book, you know how much that would cost? Do you have any idea? Anybody? Any idea what a ghost costs?
15,000 to 20,000.
Yeah, minimum 15,000, 50,000 for some of these. Because you're taking your box of stuff, or all this stuff you've put together, and you want them to reassemble it and turn it into magic.
And make you look good.
And you're the star, right? And it doesn't happen in 5 hours, let me tell you.
Is that a ghostwriter?
That's a ghostwriter, thank you, Bob. They're going to charge. The lowest I've ever gotten was 10. And I actually had a project just come in. This guy's amazing. The book's going to be called The Entrepreneur. He escaped from Austria. He was run out of town. He was involved with gambling, cars, all kinds of stuff. He went to Monaco. His partner got involved with tax stuff. He got exiled. I mean, there's all kinds of up and down and up, mercurial, going like this. He's now got a very successful restaurant in Houston. And he is a classic entrepreneur. up and down and up and down, and he's really got it together. And after he came to America with zero in his pocket in 1996, by 2005, he was worth $7 million again. Classic entrepreneur. Real estate crash. Pew! All gone. Now he's up. Multi-million again. That's Johann. Well, now it's really, I've lost it. Okay, so, you know, and there's a back is over there. It fell out over there. All right. So that's what happens with those up and down. You got to treat this as a business. There's a profit and loss. What's it going to cost? I have editors. What's this going to cost? If I need an illustrator, what's it going to cost? If I'm going to have printing, okay, I can go and do $4 a book, but do I want to get it cheaper? For example, thank you very much. If I go back to my Sabotage book, this book, all right, this book is a very expensive book to produce. Now, number one, it's got flaps in it. This is very expensive. It's got embossing in it. It's got foil in it. If I did one at a time, number one, they couldn't do it because of all the special treatments. But my cost for 1,500 books is $2 and, yeah, under $3 a book. This is fancy dancy, okay, and I sell it for $29. So, actually, this is Canada. But we print, listen, I don't care where I print. It's a dollars and cents thing. Now, are they environmentally right? You have to look at all that. I look at all those things on that, but we've got a great China relationship. John's book, if you look at his book, because of the four color, because of the vellum, that ribbon, see the ribbon hanging out in that? Do you know what that costs in America? That ribbon, where's the ribbon? That ribbon costs 95 cents in North America. It cost me 3 cents in China. So I couldn't, this would be $6.96 here, and it was $2.56. So you have to look at those things. That's dollars and cents of it. So you have printing cost, you're going to have production cost, which is your editor, which is going to be your layout designer, which will be your cover designer. People who, I always love working with layout people who have graphics, illustration background, because they bring a different look to the party. And it's much richer. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We've got contacts here that are connected there. And actually, for the China contact, everything's done in North America, and the final thing is done here. So that's what you're looking, that's production on that. It is the dollars and cents. You need to understand that. We'll get into that more. Yeah?
You mean ballpark price on an editor?
On an editor. And it's a good question. Now, there's multiple types of editing. All right, there is a developmental conceptual editor. That means basically your writing sucks and you need help. Okay, you need to understand that. Some of you are not, you've got great ideas, fabulous ideas. John, hold on. John, thank you. You've got national, where was I? Editing, okay. Sucky writers, okay. So you have, if you've got people who are, you've got great ideas, but you just suck at writing, get help. A developmental, a conceptual developmental editor is going to cost you anywhere from $50 to $95 an hour. So if they have to come in and really do a massive rewrite, it almost could look like a ghosting by the time you're done. I don't know. Okay, I get more involved with the developmental side in that. I do not want to ghost. I don't want your box of stuff, but I want you to come in with a manuscript I can start working with if I have to work over it. I'll do that. John gets more into the fine line editing of it, and those run, and you're going to see anywhere from a $25 to a $65 an hour charge. And then if you've got proofreading, proofreading is for the final check through, and actually we don't do our final proofread until the book is laid out, because I can guarantee when a book goes into layout, things look differently. The formal commas that you thought were there aren't. Semicolons shouldn't have been there. A period, it went missing. Quotes, they're backwards. And you're thinking, then, oh, wait a minute, I should have got this, but you just didn't see it. And here's the problem. When you have a conceptual editor involved, because they become so immersed in your project as well as you're immersed in it, you're incapable of seeing anything. You've got to have someone with clean eyes. So my final proofreader is a 4th grade school teacher that comes in and looks at it, and she charges $350 to do a whole book, and it's the best $350. And we're just finishing Ward Lucas's book. Does anyone remember Ward Lucas, who was a Channel 9 anchor for 30 years? Ward book has a book that's going to get him into deep doo-doo. There's no question about it. It's called Neighbors at War, the creepy case against your homeowners association. He has used his total investigative reporter side of it and putting it together. And Ward came in after Georgianne was done. He said, I am embarrassed. You know, I spent 30 years looking for these kind of copy-related things. I can't believe what she pulled out. Okay? So that's where, and we never let Georgianne see a book until the book is ready to be looked at. And she just knows it's coming, because you have to have, your final proofreader has to be a person who is totally clean, has no biases, no thoughts. They're just reading it through, looking for stuff.
Is this kind of what you just said to that question? That you would look at it initially like for concept content.
Yep.
He would look at it for grammar, quote, and then you have a proofreader for an outside.
Yeah, sometimes I get involved with a project. It'll come in and I'll go through the first 2 or 3 chapters and see how bad the writing is. Okay, and I actually purple pencil it. Who asked me about purple? Oh, someone asked me about purple. Did your books change when purple? Purple's part of our brand. I always have purple somewhere on my body. When I'm speaking, there's always purple involved. Find out what works for you. Okay, and you transition into that. And so I will write with a purple pen and start rewriting to see what the flow feels like, because I can't pick up someone's manuscript without starting to write on it. It's just what I do. Okay, so all right, so non-business. The 4th one is you rush to publish. You rush, rush, rush. And sometimes you just need to breathe a little bit. And let me tell you, I've been guilty of this. I've done this one myself. Guilty, guilty, all right? And then marketing. So the first 4, the 20%, this is where you've got to really put your energy in, and you've got to really understand the power of what can happen with Twitter now. For those of you who have women's fiction, or anyone in here doing a cookbook or children's book, you have to be in Pinterest. There's no, you can't leave Pinterest, because it's the fastest growing platform right now on that. LinkedIn which usually was thought of as a business thing and job search. LinkedIn is taking on its a whole new life. And I do a radio show every Thursday. And I would encourage you to listen into this Thursday. It's at 4 o'clock, because Beth Zinus is on, and she is known as your nerdy best friend. This woman does unbelievable things nerd ways, and the apps that you can do that will make your life writing easier, and how to shut people out, how to make it so your computer can't interrupt you. Just little tweaks and twists. And it's been the most popular downloaded show we've had. So you might like, you need Beth. Anyway, but marketing, your marketing, keep it going and find out which works for you, okay? Now, I wanted to bring up just ISBN, that this was what separates the self-published market from the really true published market. And for your ISBNs that go along, so I'm going to tell you, I want you to use a truncated version. What's that mean? What do I mean by this? If you look at, let me find one of my older books. Okay, you notice how this is like a whole inch? Okay, I call this Fat Boy. This is an inch. Okay, so if you look at this, can you see the difference between the two? Little skinnier, little sleeker. Go with truncated. You want the half-inch version. It gives you more real estate. This is the most, all your book cover is about is pick me up. Pick me up. Just, hey, look me over. Your sales are here. This is where roughly a half a minute your reader will take on your book.
What does it cost to get
ISBN, you can get them for like $125. Let's go for Bowker, B-O-W-K-E-R. Get another $100, and they have an administration fee, but you buy 10. And why do you want 10? Because I'm telling you, books breed. I only meant to write one book. They breed. And although Amazon does not require an ISBN for their ebook, iPad does. So I just think that, and I would put on my print version, my ebook ISBN is this. You know, in the new edition of Stabotage, we've done that. So I put P-book, I would do A-book, I would have all of them in there. And if you go from, like, if you have a hardback book and you go to softback book, you have to have a new ISBN. All these different formats. So if you look at this, where did I put my guy? Yep.
These ISBN and library accounts appear on the copyright page. And what you just said, if you listen, that also legal ISBN.
Right.
On it as well. On the Library of Congress, you don't duplicate one to another.
Right, okay, so what he's saying is, there's two things you're going to do here. So ISBN, and right down here it says there's ISBN, it's a 978 number. Do you see 978 up here on the coding here? Right here? All right, that just means book. 978 stands for publishing, book. The other code numbers would mean other type of products. But 978 is the publishing world. O means that's the publish. This 90169, this number that comes into play here, that identifies you. This is you. So if you only have one, and see right in here, this is the 54th title. This is the so this we have 100 ISBNs. All right. So this is the 54th use of the ISBN here, and this is just a verify and check have. They used to be 10. They're now 13. But this is very unique. This publisher means Mile High Press. This would be Mile High Press. And this would be how many titles are in it, that type of thing. Whoops, what did I do?
You mean how many titles are associated with that?
Yeah, with it, yes. How many titles they can publish with that. But so, and then you have an LOC, Library of Congress number. If you plan to have your book in a library, number one, you must have an ISBN. Number two, you must have a Library of Congress number. And you get your ISBN, 10 costs $275, $250 plus 25, and your Library of Congress is free. But you apply for your LOC, after, go to loc.gov for that. After you get, and your ISBN is BOWKER, and some people sell one at a time, but they're theirs, okay? And if you go to CreateSpace, you can use your ISBN. Well, if you use CreateSpace, you use their ISBN block. Now, how many ISBNs do you think CreateSpace owns? Probably 100,000. And they assign it. So if you pull your book away from CreateSpace, you have to get a new ISBN, which is good news because it gives your book new life. It's like it's brand new, okay? So you, and very common on the back cover, we used to put, you'll see sometimes some of the books, you'll see, I kind of like it when you put in here not only the price of the book, here's the ISBN laid out, but the price of the book, and this book goes for $29, $29, and you can put your categories in here. What you have. So mine says in the whole, my whole on this particular book, it's all wrapped up in this area. I have to the right over here, I've got our logo that we just changed actually, but we have our logo, Mile High Press. Up here is a reprint of the full number, and down here we have the categories. So our categories would be healthcare, it would be nursing, it would be business, management type of thing, and then the price of the book. And so why do people care? Because when it goes into a bookstore, they can see, oh yeah, it goes in business. That's why you want to put your categories. It goes in, where do you want this book to land? In a bookstore, where do you want people to go to find it? Help them out. So if it's historical fiction, we would put historical fiction on it. That would be the category, okay? It used to be we would put Canadian prices on it. Don't bother. The fact is Canadian dollar is stronger than we are. Just put U.S. prices. with electronics today, everybody adjusts. It doesn't matter where you are. So if Tom goes up to Canada, when they flash whatever he says his book is, what do you sell your book for? $20 even. So now, I'm a big fan of doing even numbers of that, because people can give him a $20 bill in a nanosecond, right? And do that. So you can do that. But most of our business is done on credit cards. So it doesn't matter what country you're in, it converts immediately for it. So I don't worry about that. All right, make sure you include the categories, include the price of your book, so ISBNs. Now, here's the books on your businesses, and we've got time. Time is the issue. If your book deciding on publishing will be a timing factor. If you need your book, I mentioned earlier, pretty quick, you got to take control and do it yourself, and which format you do. But if you go to traditional time with New York, you're looking at 18 months. All right, it's a money issue, and I'm going to get into the dollars and cents of it. But if you learn how to sell your books, which Tom is doing on his own, so he knows that when he's gone through his initial cost, he knows the cost of his book is $4. If he's going to sell it for $20, he knows that $16 is going in his pocket, right? It's money. If he took that $20 book, and if he was a traditional publisher, because it's a paper book, correct, Tom? It's a paper book. $20, he is lucky to get at that rate. They would, number one, they would give him a royalty based on net. All right? Net is going to be 55% discount at best. So now we're looking, net is for him book is $9 based on royalty. On a paper book, you're looking at anywhere from 6, maximum 9% of that amount. So let's say he was really doing well, and he got 9% of that. So he has a $9 book at 9%. How much is that? Yeah, less than $1. That's all he's going to make. So Tom, as a businessman, takes them with him, and he puts $16 in his pocket instead of 90 cents. Okay, does that make sense? Did I crunch that dollar right for you? All right. All right, next up, it's the quality issue. And I would encourage you to get involved with Author U, and it's a control issue. And the quality, let me go back to quality. I mentioned Money Phases. That book was published in 1984. It is now kissing 28 years, is that right? 28 years. All right, so the paper is still good quality. The cover still lays flat. Quality, and it still gets together. I remember Charles Stellwagen, who is the event coordinator at Tattered Cover, telling me why they wouldn't carry Lulu books and iUniverse books, because the pages fall out. There's not enough glue in them. Quality. It's a quality. How does the cover feel? And how many of you are tactile in here? You see, I'm very tactile too. As a designer, Sue's got to have some tactile to her. All right, so I like the smell of the ink. I like the smell of the paper. I want to touch the feel. And I'm on computers a good 12 hours a day. My style is not to read a book. I have a Nook, but my style is not to read a book for pleasure. I like a book. So, and then control. All right, this happened when I was doing some exploring on Amazon in Europe. And I found the book. I mentioned McGraw-Hill was selling my book after I took the rights back. This is Gender Traps that they got paid several $1,000s for, that they were supposed to give me 50% of. And actually, I should have gotten 100% because I had the rights back. Now, am I going to go after them for publishing this? The publisher for copyright infringement, do I have a right to do that? Oh yeah, big time. Roger is illegal. Oh yeah. Am I going to do that? No, because to go after that, you're talking about maybe spending $50,000 to $100,000. I'm not going to go down that route. I'm just not going to do that. I'll just be pissed and talk about it. But you have to really look at the dollars and cents. I'm in business. A letter. Yeah, but that kind of stuff you do. But to go after that path, because I have to prove how many books they sold and how much I've been wronged. You think I'm going to be able to get that information? Not even. So, anyway, so I like being in control. When it comes to my books, I like being in control. Yeah?
Do you work with an attorney?
I have a couple of attorneys I work with, yeah. Yes. All right, so how do we measure success? You want to look at this. You know, the effect, is it going to be the effect you have? A lot of you said, yes, the impact I'm going to have on people. Some of you said, I want, you know, publicity and attention. I want to be recognized. Some of you want money. Those are usually the 3 areas that most authors come in. Just be clear where you are. And a book success is the same thing as it is with a business. So you're the key point, the author, but you still have to manage it, and you still have the people involved to create the product so you can go out and sell it. And then you have another range of product that comes into it. All right, so all those components are always, it's always like a 3-legged stool. If any of those things are missing, it's not going to work. It'll misfire with that. So if you're going to have author success, you can have a great book with no business skill. You can have a mediocre book with great business skills. By the way, if you look at the Celestine Prophecy, it is a mediocre book. It is written poorly. Those of you who have the craft of writing down, you're going, with it. But the guy was brilliant in his marketing. All right, he had the business skills. Or if you have an author with a great book and awesome business skills. So who do you think the #1 author is in the world that has that? Exactly. She's brilliant. And she's now launching her new fiction adult line, and you're talking about a control freak. It's brought it into it. She won't even let it be open up. You can't even see the manuscript if you're in a foreign. She's just showing it to the Americans first because she doesn't, she's worried about piracy. It's huge, huge. All right, so author development, things you won't hurt. Your book stinks. Okay. Your friends aren't great editors. You need to be tuned into that. Your cover sucks. You're clueless about the business. This is where you really need to understand what's going on in publishing, where we're going with it. All right, Oprah won't be impressed. You know, because everyone just thinks, I want, you know, Oprah, this is perfect for Oprah. Doesn't matter. #1, her audience is so small. Doesn't matter now. But it also, she didn't sell that many books unless she got in your book club. That was a different thing. All right, you've been taken, and no author likes to hear this. No author likes to hear this, but there are times when you've been taken. You're in bed with the wrong person, and I've become much more blunt about it because I thought, oh, you know, I just met you. Can I really tell you you've been screwed? You know, now I do say it, but you've been taken. All right, you need to speak better. How many of you think you're a good speaker? Yep, you speak? You speak? You need to really be able to tell stories, to presence, to interact, to do that, because this is going to be a superb way to sell books. Have stories to go with it. All right, 100 copies may be too many to print. Okay, and that's where you kind of get into legacy books. Okay? All right, and then this is what people don't tell you. You got to work your butt off. This is really it's hard work. It's starting any business. Roger, what would be the average new business owner? What do they put into their business? Do you think in time?
Oh, it's all over the board, especially with internet startups today.
Mm-hmm.
Much less. But in terms of their time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the ones that are successful spend full time, and it's, you know, it's all day, all night.
So it consumes you, is what he's saying. When you're starting a new business, an authorship will consume you. I mean, you'll dream about it. You wake up thinking about it. When I'm working on a client's book, I start thinking about it. You know, I wake up in the morning and the book's there on that. So you have to work your butt off if you're going to be successful with that. All right, now, for you, those of you who are green, just starting, like Tony here, I want you have a deal with this, but this is the author. You create a book map. And you do this for your marketing, you do this for your speaking, you do for your author, for your book development of it, and that is so what are all the main, and all I'm doing here is pointing out what are their main things? You know those Post-its I was talking about? This would be like a Post-it. Okay, key Post-it. This is the giant purple color, the main color. Then I have pink and I have turquoise and I have lime green, and these are subsets that are going to come down. So how I would display those then is we went all around it. Then I would have, okay, so we have these. These would be other little colors coming in. These are stories to support the key point. This is data to support the key point, statistics. It may be a reference to another work that you want to bring in. It may be a quote that you want to bring in. This is the infrastructure if you start developing those books as you go along with it. And they will keep coming along as you go along. So you always want to ask for yourself, why are you the person to be writing it? This is critical, critical. Why are you the person? You start that same thing for your persona. That now, one side is developing of the book structure, but now this comes back to, okay, so why are you the person who's going to be the claim to fame? Secondly, who are you writing for? It is so critical to understand this. You know, I'm writing for Harvey and Betty, and they have their morning coffee together, and they're just talking over their plate. Perfect. So, you know, we've got the scene, you can move it into that. Who are you writing for? I'm writing for nurses who are living in such toxicity that they're sick. All right? I'm writing for people who just want a fabulous read. In fiction, you need to know who you're writing for because they have a problem. I mean, nonfiction, they have a problem, and you've got the answer. You've got the solution. You've got the tracking to put it together. The reason why people buy Tom's book is because they want to know what's going on, what's coming down the pike in the future. He's a futurist. So they're looking for answers, solutions, or they're looking for their pain to be relieved. For people who write fiction, you're into entertainment. Now, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's romance, whether it's historical, whether it's loft your socks off until you're incontinent, you know, it's that kind of thing. It's entertainment. And different people, I mean, there was a book that came in that we actually turned down because the author wasn't willing to change it. It was so dark, I could not find one redeeming thing about one character. Now, is that going to pull you in to read it? Unless you're really sick. Okay? I guess. Maybe there is a market for that, but that's just not what I can work in. So, who are you writing for? For nonfiction, what are your success stories? All right, so Ken, you need to write down every success story you have and decide which one will fit into each area. Now, it doesn't mean you use their real names, you change it. But what are your success stories? And, this is critical, what are your failure stories? And it was always amazing to me when I first came out to Woman, the first question from any media source was, how did you really lose $1 million? What did it feel like? And how did you recover? Okay? So, what are your failure stories? Because that, I mean, if you talk to anyone who's successful, they will tell you they've had a lot of successes, but it's their failure that creates the fabric that takes them. All right, are you doing outside research? Are you doing outside research? Okay, so some of you, for science, you know, you're going to be doing engineering. You're going to have some outside data coming in here. So where are you going to conduct it yourself? I conduct my own research. I always do my own research. SurveyMonkey is hot, and there's, you know, lots of knockoffs like that. You can do 10 simple questions for 100 responses, and what boggles my mind is you don't need a lot of responses to really start putting stuff into play. And my wake-up call was when I was on a board of a New York company, and I was back east for a board meeting, and I walked in the main office, and they were bags, huge mail bags full of letters. And I said, what are these? They said, well, this is our recent survey. And I said, well, when are you going to open them? We're not. We only open every 10th bag. That was huge to me. Huge. And when you see these surveys, whether it's ABC News, CBS News, Fox News, fill in the blank news, they don't have much more than 1,000 people in that survey. If you look at the numbers, it really comes down. They have their samples there. And I have learned in all the studies I've done, and the biggest one I did, I had 5,000 respondents, that by the 25th response, I know exactly the way the answers are going. It is amazing. Amazing. The repetition. And so what I'm looking for is surveys, because I always ask a question, is there anything else you'd like to share or would you like to be interviewed? I'm looking for the gem stories to use. That's what I'm after then. I know where it's going to go. Yeah.
You're saying you need less than 100?
You can actually do something. You know where it's going to go. But you may be for your audience need a bigger duo. So SurveyMonkey will let you do 10 questions for free with 100 responses. I always went well over 1,000, so I was a paid player. Okay. So what are your key positions that you'll be, your points that you're working for here? What are the benefits to the reader? Be very clear. And this also helps you work on your cover copy. Because if you're doing nonfiction and you're giving an answer, a solution, you're relieving their pain, that's part of the benefit, isn't it? Be very clear on that. And then, what's the number one thing that makes you so frickin' unique? What's the number one thing that makes you and your work so unique? Because if we're publishing 1 million books roughly a year or so, who are, fill in the blank, it's hard to be unique. What makes you unique? What makes you the unique? So for my Women in Sabotage, I was the pioneer. I had Gloria Steinem sitting across from me at dinner and said, do not publish this work. Don't. It won't be good for us, women. Don't do this. Okay? What makes you unique? And think about, and I don't care if this is fiction or nonfiction, think about the problem. If I'm fiction, my protagonist has got a problem, right, Tony? There's a problem. If you're writing nonfiction, there's a problem somewhere here. What's the cause of it? For fiction, the protagonist could be the cause, right? My ex-wife could be the cause. Somebody's the cause of creating all this chaos. For nonfiction, what's the cause? When I went through the embezzlement, my partner took on drugs as a new partner. That was the cause that led it to everything dominoed, right? But then it opened up a different thing. That's how I lost it. But then I started looking at women in the workplace and what was going on. There are different causes. What's the effect? Fiction, my protagonist is having a hell of a time, or really a good time. Who knows? But what's the effect? In nonfiction, what's the effect? If it's health, because I ate all this stuff, do I have diabetes now? Is it, if it's a business management, because of these things going to play, now is this going on? Because of the toxic workplace of women and sabotaging women at a higher degree than men were shafting them, and they were targeting their own gender much more than being equal? Was there effect? Huge, huge, and we could quantify it, all right? So what's the solution? What's the solution? How do I leave it? Now, what Tony's going to be able to do as a fiction writer, and those of you who are doing fiction, is that one of the things that's happening so much in writing now is that they leave it kind of open-ended at the end because they're setting what, Tony? The next book. So what he is going to do in writing his book is he's going to bring it to the end, but he's going to give us a sneak preview of the opening chapter of the next book because he's going to tease us. Bad boy. He's going to tease us, and he's going to learn. If you've got other books going on in the nonfiction area, because I'd like to see Tom, and one of the things is because he's doing print on demand, things are changing all the time. He could easily kind of throw in another chapter of what this next thing's going on. What do you see another trend coming, right? Yeah. So come on, let us know. And then here's what it does: it forces you to get the next book going, because people are going to say, where is it? And it comes along. I have actually sold books before I've written a book, because I'm after to see is there an audience, and then I come forward and do it. I pre-sale a book 6 months before the book's ready. Okay. All right. Now, growing it grows. You can't wait for the phone to ring. You've got to understand the 3 Ps: pitch, platform, and plan. Okay, we're going to get into the platform, but pitch, platform, and plan, you've got to get that. You've got to have a game plan, and your marketing is so much in here. You've got to be able to tell me, it's a pain for me when I ask an author, tell me about your book, and 5 minutes later I still can't figure out what this book's about. tell me in a Twitter what your book's about. If you're going to try to pitch it to someone else to publish you, if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to sell it, if that's your game plan. You've got to be very articulate with that. All right, you've got to create unique words and phrases. This is what's so much fun. So Ken, you could be doing it because you're going through a very specific clientele. There's certain buzzwords that will be much more receptive to them. Modify them. You know, I took sabotage, made it stabotage. And actually that came from one of my male clients. He said, you know, Judith, you talk about this and this and this. They're kind of sabotaging each other. And I went, yeah, that's what they're doing. And I made it a book title. Oh, I told him right in front of his face. Yes, I did. I said, Gene, can I use this? Yes, you do that, and you acknowledge that. But Gene's the reason why I use that. Yeah, we see him all the time, so we're still friendly. But that's really important to understand. Make things that are unique and own them. And I actually made a definition of it. Where sabotage can be intentional or unintentional, sabotage is purposefully done. I'm setting you up to shaft you, okay? So, use unique word phrases, make them up your own, be the expert, own it, claim it, determine what your market is, and niche it down. The more you funnel it, the more you drill it down, you become the whale in the lake versus the sardine in the sea. So much better to have that virality. And you've got to go to it. You've got to go and show up. Tom shows up to other people, any kind of environment that people are interested in technology in the future. Correct, Tom? That's your deal. That's his go-to market. So for Linda, healthcare, nursing, that's her go. She needs to go to nursing conferences. That's where you show up and you sell books. You pitch it and you try to get, we have a new client just coming out, Chasing Rainbow. Lucy, at the age of 42, just married, ovarian cancer at 42. You know, it's the deadliest of all the female diseases. She's 2 years out now. She's clean, as she, you know, all the markers are fine, but she's written her book. And part of our pitch is, what we did is we brought in everybody who was involved in her care, her husband, her dogs. I wrote as the dog. I became Rafferty and Tara. That her mother-in-law, her father-in-law, we have at the end of each chapter what we call the take. So it's Todd's take, Rafferty's take, Sue's take, Burton's take, da-da-da-da. And it's their view of what's going on. It's a very unique way to present it. So I told her that when you sell this, Lucy, that you sell it not only one book, you always sell two, because you need one for you, but your loved ones need the other book to go through. Is that a good idea? It's a little unique, carry it along, think of it, you got to go to it. Timing is always critical. It is critical. Now, here's another way, just tip, we got 3 minutes for a break. Tip, tip, tip. If your dream, no one said New York Times bestseller, does anyone have that dream? Does anyone have that dream? It used to be one of my dreams. All right. The thing is, I've sold more books than most New York Times bestsellers ever sell. And it's kind of a manipulative deal, but here's one of the things that I learned from a PR person who handled the media for the South Beach diet. How many of you have heard the South Beach diet? Okay. First of all, they didn't do the standard, typical cover that a diet book would have. You know, the big letters and whatever. They made it look like a romance novel. Okay, number one. Number two, most diet books, can you think of any month of the year that a diet book would probably want to launch? January. Exactly, Linda. And that's when they all came out. They decided not to do it like everybody else. They brought it out in May. And guess what? There was no other diet books out fresh at that time. And everyone said, whoa, for us! 1,000 books made the New York Times bestseller list. Normally it's 30 to 50. Okay? Just a little side note. Timing. Timing is critical. And remember, none of this happens overnight. None of this happens overnight. So with that. Now, is there a title in you? What's my time, Ken? 2 minutes, okay. So if you look at the title of Sabotage, and the pit, you know, I remember standing in front of the fire like this, and John and I was thinking, I need one more. And that's where the pit bull, skunk, snake, scorpions, and slugs. And now I have characters that were all illustrated. who they are, and I bring them up when I would talk to health groups, and I would describe it, and people would go, God, that's her, you know, and people would go that kind of thing. So, is there a title in you? And you have to really think about those titles. So, how do you create the titles that work? Well, they need to be snappy. This is the 3 S's. Snappy, they need to have a little sass in them, and they need to be salty. This is salty. It's salty. Salty doesn't mean 4-letter words. Salty means, whoa, wait a minute, what did that say? It gets their attention. It's got a twist, kind of a little twist to it. So if you look at things, and like I was looking at my PW as John was driving up, and this is one title. This is a fiction title. Okay, it's a spin-off, and oh, where can you get oh, look at music titles, look at it, you know, those kind of things. All right. The Liar, the Bitch, and the Wardrobe. Is that not a hot title for a fiction book? Okay. Now, it is a chick flick. Chick-lit, not flick. Well, it could be a flick, but it's a chick-lit. But you can go through, start going down, and I mean, when we take a break, you can look at this. This is the current issue of Pub Weekly. And you'll see they've got it broken down in all the sections, but you can see people, and they're short. The main title is usually very short. Think Amazon listing here. Very short, it gets picked up. The subtitle can be much longer. Daryl?
Is that running against like a copyright or trademark kind of?
You can't copyright a title.
That's kind of...
Nope, you're good. You can't copyright a title. And it's not The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He's gotten different, you know, it's a variation, but people variation. One of my favorite little books was, I love Tina Turner, and you know, Simply the Best, and we did a variation off of the Simply the Best theme, and it came off some other thing. But what's love got to do with it? What's marriage got to do with it? That's what the title came up with. You can't copyright the title. It's the content. It's the content that goes in. If you read the description of this, it has no...
At some point, a title can become a trademark.
It can, but it's going to take a challenge to that, and I'm not the legal eagle for
It
that.
has to be associated with goods or services that you're providing.
So it's goods and services, like Coca-Cola. So the biography of Coca-Cola, okay. But titles are critical. So think short, snappy, sassy, salty. Pay attention. We spend a lot of time on working on titles. They're incredible. Okay, so we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll keep plowing.